Joining me now for his analysis, foreign editor at The Australian, Mr. Sheridan. Greg, as always, great to have your company. You've had a couple of days now to digest the budget detail. How do you score it?
Well, Peter, the best thing out of the budget was seeing that photo of you rowing 20 years ago. It's fantastic. Look, I thought it was a pretty mediocre, to be serious, a pretty mediocre budget. It's sort of, in a sense, in keeping with the character of the Albanese government. It's by no means the worst Labor budget you could have had. You could imagine things far, far worse, but it does absolutely nothing to address the structural deficit. It has no path back to a balanced budget. We've had a massive terms of trade boost because of record high commodity prices, and we're not putting any of that in the bank. We're just spending it all. We're increasing our national debt, and we've got to pay that back and pay interest on it. Nothing happening in defence, but we're waiting for the report of the review next March for that to happen. So I would say it's a very mediocre budget. Doesn't really address our problems. It makes them worse, but only modestly.
Right, well, one of the elements that struck me in the budget detail when I looked at this on Wednesday night, but Labor's voice to the Parliament. We know it'll be in the next financial year. We learned today it's likely to be at the front end of that financial year, so at the back end of next year, 2023. Interestingly, there's tens of millions of dollars to run this referendum. Fair enough, they're not cheap things. There's about $6 million to have this truth-telling commission. This is just very early seed money. But what about the special tax deductibility? This is for anyone, and I read this as big corporates, who donate to a yes campaign, but no such deduction for a no campaign. Now, I think it's wrong to say we're going to give Australians their say on this issue, but use their money, taxpayer funds, to skew the result you might want politically. I think this is very, very wrong-headed, Greg.
Yeah, I agree with you absolutely, Peter. I think there's something profoundly undemocratic about the way this is going. Opponents to the voice are all but censored. It seems to me very unlikely that they're going to fund the no case as they should. I'm tremendously critical of the Liberal Party for still not having a position on the voice. My mail is they will ultimately oppose whatever Albanese proposes, but they'll give their people a way out by saying they're only opposing the specifics rather than opposing in principle the idea of a race-based instrument in our constitution. Now, if the centre-right of Australian politics opposed it, that would put more pressure on the government to give equal tax deductibility to both sides, to spend less money on one-sided propaganda. It would put some pressure on the ABC to have balance in their panels. I think this is very likely to go the way of the same-sex plebiscite, where the Conservatives in the coalition will be terrorised into silence and the wets in the coalition will join the wokes in the general culture. You get massive taxpayer money spent on propaganda efforts in favour of the voice, both through the ABC and through all the measures you outlined. This is a kind of a North Korea stroke Cuba, brackets I'm obviously exaggerating here. This is a very undemocratic way to run a debate, and I think it's going to be a very bad proposal for Australia, because we will have race as a central part of the definition of citizenship in Australia, which is a tremendous step backwards. We've been there, done that as a civilisation. It's a very bad idea.
And I suspect this is the dry run for the Republic. This will be the model, this soft entry, use of public money, shutting down any dissent that they'll use when they have the referendum if they are re-elected for a second term.